everyone. It's been a while since I posted a layout video, but I've been a lot busier than usual since like October. But I finally had some photos printed and a quiet evening and was ready to go to town scrapbooking. And I have the new Modern Mist collection from Bo Bunny just arrived today. And so I wanted to start cutting it up because that's my favorite thing to do. These papers are really pretty. I love the colors and the patterns in this. Just a nice collection. And the photo I have is of my husband and my sister wearing these funny squid hats when we were at the Long Beach Aquarium, or I guess Aquarium of the Pacific it's called. And so I just wanted to scrapbook about their silly hats. So I've chosen this paper, and it's an ombre grid. The grid is hard to see on camera. It's very subtle, but it's almost like a digital look to an ombre effect. And then I've got these hot pink numbers and then these aqua hearts. And I'm going to be using my EK Success large scallop punch to give a scalloped edge to the aqua, and I'm just going to cut a strip of it. And I'm going to be doing what I think of as the shelf design, where you have a shelf of paper coming out from the side of the layout and your photos are sitting on top of it. So now I'm just going to cut this into a strip and start building. Originally was thinking I was going to do something very simple with the shelf idea and not do much more paper than this. But the more I worked on it, the less I liked it. So I actually will end up adding more paper and beefing up my shelf. But what I'm doing right now is I've taken a sticker from the collection, and it came in the collection pack. And I am just sticking it on some black cardstock, and I'm cutting it out again, leaving a thin line of black cardstock. And if I have a lot of really bright colors kind of all sitting right on top of each other that are similar in color tone, then I will put thin black layers in between them, either by doing thin layers of cardstock or thin strips of cardstock. So for example, I'm doing the thin cardstock around this sticker. The other thing that I'll do if I don't use cardstock for all of them is I will use an ink pad to put a thin layer, very, very fine black line around the other pieces, or sometimes I use a marker. In this case, I'm going to use the ink pad. So now I've taken this 6x6 card from the collection's cut apart sheets, and I'm actually cutting this viewfinder out of it with this little banner, and then there's a little bit of the lines, this is supposed to be a journaling spot, that are left over, and I'm going to cut them and use them as a journaling spot later on. So I've taken this 6x6 card that I would not have ever used as a 6x6 card and cut it into two pieces that are going to get used on layout. So if you have cards like this in your collections and you're like, oh, I'm never going to use this 6x6 card, kind of break them down in your mind and think about what pieces of them you could use. So now I'm testing some Color Shine from Heidi Swapp. I've tested the Sweet Cherry, and now I'm testing the Primrose on a scrap of paper from the collection to see which one is going to be closer in tone to the pink paper that's in this collection. And Sweet Cherry was closer, so I'm going to use Sweet Cherry to make a line of diagonal spots from the upper right to lower left corner. And if I'm going to scrap on a diagonal, I almost always scrap on a diagonal from the upper right down to the bottom left, because that is more natural for the way a Westerner reads. If you think about the way you read a piece of paper, you start in the upper left corner, or even think about a newspaper or a book page, you start in the upper left corner, you go all the way across, then you go diagonally down to the left, go all the way across. And so because Westerners are taught to read that way, and if you design your page the similar way to a book, then it's just going to be a little more pleasing to the eye. So now I've got my embellishments, and now I'm really thinking I want more paper now that I've added my viewfinder, because it just seems like there's a lot of empty space all around the photo. But before I add the paper, I'm going to work on an embellishment, and I am taking these wood charms from Cosmo Cricut, and I have links in the video description to where you can get all the supplies used in this video. But I'm taking these wooden charms from Cosmo Cricut that are really, really cute. Actually, they have holes in them, and you can string them like buttons, or put brads through them, or do all kinds of stuff. I've even seen people turn them into earrings, but I am actually going to take some of Cosmo Cricut's glitter sheets, and these are adhesive glitter sheets. The glitter does not shed at all. They're really, really nice. They're similar to the American Crafts POW paper in sort of the way that they feel, but the glitter's a little bit chunkier on these sheets and a little bit more sparkly than on the POW paper. But just like the POW paper, it's soft and is flexible and doesn't shed, and it doesn't have any weird coating or anything like that. So I'm just taking some of the wood charms and sticking them to this to the adhesive on the back of the glitter, and I'm getting 2 large, 4 medium, and 6 small stars, and I'm going to use those to make a random pattern after I cut them out. And I made a big mistake when I put these stars down. I thought I would save some of my glitter paper by putting all the stars as close to each other as possible and having their points like intersecting and things, but that made them so hard to cut out because I couldn't get my scissors around them very well. So if I were going to do this again, then I would just put all my stars in a row and just cut a strip of the glitter paper off, because it was such a hassle trying to cut these apart with them all jammed together in the corner like that. So that is something you can do, and that is learn from my mistake. After I finished cutting out all the stars, I cut another couple sheets of paper. And so the pink mat behind my photo is 4x6 with 1/8 of an inch white around it. So it's 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. My hot pink piece is 5x7, and then that striped piece is 6x8. And what I'm going to do, then I cut just a strip of that block paper to beef up my shelf. And that's giving me a look that I'm a lot happier with. It's just more visually pleasing. And now I'm just kind of playing with what I want to do with the stars. Do I want to do the stars sprinkled along that same diagonal as the Sweet Cherry Color Shine, or do I want them in 2 clusters or 3 clusters around the photo in a visual triangle? And what I do end up deciding to do is to put them along the diagonal and just follow that diagonal. So now you see I'm using the rest of that 6x6 card that I cut up to just do a little bit of journaling about, you know, who's in the photo, where we are, what they're doing. This is not the kind of photo that needs like a really super long story told about it. I mean, we're at the aquarium, they put on silly hats, I took a picture of them. But just to identify who's in the photo and where we were is always something I like to do, because that way people can look through and enjoy the books without you sitting there next to them. Or down the road, if you're not around, at least they know who's in the photos. So once again, I'm going to put the black ink very thin around the edges, just to give it like that extra little depth. And then I am going to put a line of tape. This is Miracle tape. Where I want the edge of my mat to touch my journaling spot. And so what I'm going to do, rather than try and tuck it under and get it exactly right, I'm just going to adhere the mat to the journaling spot exactly where I want it. And now I can use the 2 of them as one piece. And that is going to make this a lot easier. And so I'm finally ready to start adhering things down. So I'm going to adhere the pink piece in the bottom left corner of the 6x8 striped piece. And then I'm going to take this as one whole piece and adhere it about 1.5 inches down from the top and about a 1/2 inch in from the side. And so that's got it just to the right of center, and then not quite centered on the page top to bottom. And so now I'm just trying to figure out how I want to put the blue piece and the yellow piece together. And I finally decide that I want to put them on top of each other, but I want to shove them farther up underneath the pink piece than they'll go at this point. So I just need to I just needed to peel up the pink piece a little bit more. And now I'm using the grid. I told you this is a grid paper. I'm using the grid on the paper to place my elements to make sure that they're straight. And that's going to help me keep them all lined up. So I'm tucking that yellow corner all the way into the banner so I don't have a weird gap where a little sliver of that viewfinder shows. Of course, after I place my blue piece, I place it in such a way that it creates a little bit of a weird sliver or gap in between the banner and the blue piece. So I guess I do still have a gap that I want to cover up that I'm not 100% happy with. But I just took my EK6S label punch and cut the long skinny label out of some of the pattern paper from the collection. And now I'm just adhering it under the where the cut on film die cut is going to be, and I'm just using a ruler to help me make sure that they're in a straight line with each other and gluing it down. And then when I put the cut on film on top of it, it'll look like one long skinny banner. So that's going to make a nice little embellishment there. And the blue paper I chose matches the darker blue stripe, so that's going to pull that darker blue down from the upper corner down to the upper right, down to the bottom left. So it's going to keep that keep your eye moving on the diagonal. And now I'm just going to put foam tape on the back of the sort of homemade die cut that I have created here, and then adhere it to the layout. And I finally committed to placement of all of these things. I've got my photo, I've got my journaling, and so now I'm working on the stars. And when I'm trying to make something look random, I start with the largest piece. So in this case, I'm starting with the 2 large stars, and I put them where I feel like they'll have the most visual impact. So in this case, I'm putting them on edges so that they're part on and part off an edge. Then I put 2 more glue dots in a triangle. So you can see in the bottom left corner, I'm a little bit off camera, but you can see I put glue and I formed a triangle. Once I have my base triangle, I can put pieces into little duos. So I'm taking the smaller ones and I'm following that same triangle, and I made a second triangle with the smaller ones. And when you're trying to make things look random, putting them in triangles really helps. So if you think of it as you're putting them on the point of triangles, then that can really make it easier to get things going. The other thing you can do, and that's what I'm doing in the upper right corner, is put things in X's. That can really help. Just think about shapes and how you can just follow those shapes. So now I have that X shape in the top right corner, or you can see I have 2 triangles. I have the triangle closer to the corner and the triangle that's partially touching the photo. So now I just want to add these hearts sort of floating in among the stars. So I've got my sprinkles floating along the diagonal. I've got the stripes on the diagonal. I've got the dark blue coming down the diagonal. I've got the hot pink in the center framing the photo. And now I'm going to have hearts along the diagonal. So I just am constantly reinforcing that diagonal movement so that your eye comes straight from the upper right corner down across the photo, and then it's going to go back to the right along the shelf where you're going to read the title and journaling. And so everyone's going to see the 3 parts of the layout that I want them to see the most, which are the photo, the title, and the journaling. And so these little hearts are from the Modern Mist collection. They're on the 12 by 12 chipboard sheet. And I'm just sprinkling them again in a triangular pattern amongst the stars. And I picked red ones and yellow ones. There's actually quite a lot. You can see them in the bottom right corner. You see how I have a pile of them? Whenever I get a sheet of chipboard, I always pull, I punch the pieces out of the chipboard sheet, but I keep their backings with them, and that way I have a bag of chipboard. And I find, just for me personally, it's a lot easier to work from a bag of chipboard than it is to work from a sheet. And so I use them more if I take the time to punch them out of the backing and put them in a bag. So now I'm using these mini market letters from October Afternoon to just add the names of the people in the photos over by the caught on film die cut. I like to just identify people so that there's no doubt about who's in the photos, especially in a photo like this where people are wearing sunglasses and weird squid hats and they don't necessarily look exactly like themselves. And so now I'm working on my title, and I'm doing my title with thickers, some nice blue glitter thickers, and they are in the font. The font is called the LAX, and they are the color powder. And I just use a ruler when I'm doing titles to keep my titles straight. In this case, because I'm using a thicker chipboard, I'm actually just putting them against the ruler. With sticker letters, I put them on the edge of the ruler and move them around the page. And whenever I use adhesive chipboard of any kind, whether it's stickers or like the Bo Bunny hearts from earlier, I always add my own adhesive as well, because I just don't trust it. So now my title is Silly Hat Club, and I want to add founding members underneath it. And so for a subtitle like that, I don't need to make it all thickers because that's a lot of letters. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be using the same stickers that I used to do their names earlier, and I'm going to be adding founding members with those stickers in the bottom right corner under Silly Hat Club. And that way I get my subtitle in there, but I don't have to use up a million stickers and figure out placement for all of those stickers. And that just makes it really easy to get longer titles in if you can mix and match a larger font with a smaller font. So now I just have to trim this piece that's hanging off the edge, and my layout is done. So let me bring it up closer so that you can see some of the little details and see the glitter and how sparkly it is. Then we've got our title and our little sprinkles, and I love the hearts mixed in with those sprinkles. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this layout, and I hope I have another one for you soon. Bye.